Beneath the towering peaks of the Andes, a story lies buried. It is a story not just of one empire but of many. For millennia, these mountains and deserts have cradled civilizations of astonishing ingenuity and power. Their voices whisper to us from the silent stones of ruined cities and from the intricate patterns woven into ancient textiles. We often think of Peru through the lens of the Incas, a magnificent and sprawling empire. But their tale is just the final chapter of a much older, much deeper narrative. Long before their golden sun temples rose, other cultures thrived here, shaping the very land and leaving behind mysteries that continue to puzzle us today. This is the story of a land where humanity's relationship with nature was profound and absolute. Imagine standing on a high plateau, the thin, cool air filling your lungs. All around you the mountains stand like silent guardians. It is here in this dramatic landscape that some of the world's most remarkable societies emerged. They were people who learned to read the stars, to channel water through arid lands, and to build cities in places that seem impossible to us now. The remnants of their world are everywhere, if you know where to look. They are in the giant figures etched into the desert floor, visible only from the sky. They are in the finely crafted pottery that depicts their daily lives and their powerful gods. They are in the terraced fields that still cling to the steep hillsides, a testament to their incredible farming skills. This land holds a power that is almost tangible. It is a power born from the earth itself, from the rich minerals, the life-giving rivers, and the formidable mountains that both challenge and protect. The ancient Peruvians understood this power intimately. They did not seek to conquer nature, but to live in harmony with it. Their gods were the sun, the moon, the mountains, and the earth. Their rituals and their art were all dedicated to maintaining this delicate balance. Exploring their history is not just an archaeological journey, it is an exploration of a different way of seeing the world, a way that is deeply connected to the natural rhythms of our planet. As we peel back the layers of time, we uncover a legacy of resilience and creativity that is truly awe-inspiring. We find ourselves asking profound questions. How did these early people build such complex societies without the wheel or a written language as we know it? What was the meaning behind their enigmatic symbols and their elaborate burial rituals? The answers are not always clear, but the search for them brings us closer to understanding the enduring spirit of Peru. It is a spirit forged in the crucible of high-altitude deserts and lush jungle valleys, a spirit that has survived conquest, conflict, and the passage of centuries, and continues to thrive in the vibrant culture of the nation today. Our journey begins long before the Incas, in the arid coastal plains north of modern-day Lima. Here, around 5,000 years ago, one of the oldest civilizations in the Americas quietly emerged. This was the Norte Chico culture, centered around the sacred city of Caral. These people were true pioneers. While the Egyptians were building their first great pyramids, the people of Caral were constructing their own monumental structures, large earthen mounds and sunken circular plazas. They achieved this without the benefit of pottery or metal tools, relying instead on woven bags filled with stones. Their society was complex, built on agriculture and a thriving trade network that stretched from the coast to the Amazon. They were peaceful innovators, laying a cultural foundation for all who would follow. Further south, in the barren desert plains, another culture left an even more mysterious legacy. These were the Nazca people, who flourished between 100 BCE and 800 CE. They are famous for the incredible Nazca lines, enormous geoglyphs etched into the desert floor. There are hundreds of these figures, spiders, hummingbirds, monkeys, and complex geometric shapes, some stretching for hundreds of meters. Their true purpose remains a subject of debate. Were they astronomical calendars, pathways for religious processions, or messages to the gods in the sky? What is certain is that they represent a remarkable feat of engineering and a deep spiritual connection to the cosmos, a silent, open-air temple of a scale that is hard to comprehend. On the northern coast, a different kind of society rose to prominence, the Moche. Flourishing from about 100 to 700 CE, they were master craftsmen and formidable warriors. Their pottery is extraordinary, not just for its beauty but for its realism. These ceramic vessels act as a window into their world, depicting everything from vivid hunting scenes and healing rituals to portraits of their rulers with striking individuality. The Moche built huge adobe brick pyramids known as huacas, which served as temples, palaces, and tombs. The discovery of tombs like that of the Lord of Saipan revealed a world of immense wealth and sophisticated ritual, showing us a society with powerful leaders who were seen as divine figures on Earth. Following the decline of these coastal cultures, a new power began to expand from the southern highlands. This was the Wari Empire, which, along with its contemporary, the Tiwanaku Empire, created the first great imperial states in the Andes. From around 600 to 1100 CE, the Wari established a vast and well-organized network of provincial centers connected by an impressive road system, a blueprint the Incas would later perfect. They were brilliant administrators and engineers, creating terraced farmlands to feed their growing population. The Wari legacy was one of unity and organization, demonstrating for the first time how the diverse landscapes of the Andes could be brought together under a single, centralized rule. Out of the highlands of Cusco in the heart of the Andes, a new power emerged around the 13th century. According to legend, they were descended from the sun god, Inti himself. These were the Inca, and they would go on to build the largest empire in the pre-Columbian Americas. Known as Tawantinsuyu, or the Land of the Four Quarters, their domain stretched for thousands of miles, from modern-day Colombia to Chile. Their rise was remarkably swift. Through a combination of diplomacy, assimilation, and, when necessary, military conquest, they unified a vast and diverse territory under the rule of a single emperor, the Sapa Inca, who was revered as a living god. The genius of the Inca Empire lay in its incredible organization. To govern their vast realm, they developed a complex bureaucracy and an extensive network of roads that rivaled those of the Roman Empire. These roads, complete with suspension bridges and way stations, allowed armies, messengers, and goods to move swiftly across the challenging mountain terrain. They had no formal writing system, but they kept detailed records using a clever device called the quipu, a system of knotted strings. This allowed them to track census data, tax obligations, and warehouse inventories with remarkable precision. It was a system that held a sprawling, multicultural empire together. Inca architecture is a marvel of engineering and artistry. Their stonemasons were masters of their craft, fitting massive stones together with such precision that not even a knife blade can be slipped between them. The city of Cusco was the heart of their empire, its streets laid out in the shape of a puma. But perhaps the most famous example of their architectural prowess is Machu Picchu, a royal estate nestled high on a mountain ridge. This breathtaking site, with its perfectly crafted stone temples, palaces, and houses, seems to be a part of the mountain itself. It stands as a timeless monument to the Incas' ability to build in harmony with the natural world, a sacred space where the earth and sky meet. Life in the Inca Empire was structured around a system of collective labor and reciprocity. The land was owned by the state, but communities, known as aylus, were granted access to it in exchange for labor service, or maita. This labor built the roads, temples, and agricultural terraces that sustained the empire. Religion was central to daily life. The Incas worshipped a pantheon of gods, with the sun god Inti holding the highest place. They believed in a sacred landscape where mountains, rivers, and rocks were imbued with spiritual power. Their ceremonies and rituals were grand affairs, designed to ensure the favor of the gods and the continued prosperity of the empire they had built among the clouds. In 1532, the world of the Inca was shattered forever. A small band of Spanish conquistadors led by Francisco Pizarro arrived on the shores of Peru. They were driven by rumors of a land of unimaginable wealth, a kingdom of gold. They arrived at a moment of profound weakness for the Inca Empire. A devastating civil war had just ended between two brothers, Huáscar and Atahualpa, who had fought for control after their father's death. Atahualpa had emerged victorious, but the empire was deeply divided and weakened. The Spanish, with their steel armor, firearms, and horses, animals the Inca had never seen before, appeared as beings from another world. The confrontation between the two cultures was swift and brutal. Pizarro arranged a meeting with Atahualpa in the city of Cajamarca. Trusting in the sheer size of his own army, Atahualpa arrived with a lightly armed retinue. It was a fatal miscalculation. The Spanish sprung a trap, their cannons and cavalry overwhelming the stunned Inca warriors. In the chaos, Atahualpa himself was captured. This single act decapitated the empire. The Inca, accustomed to following the divine authority of their Sapa Inca, were thrown into confusion and disarray. The Spanish had seized the very center of their universe. Atahualpa offered an incredible ransom for his freedom, a room to be filled once with gold and twice with silver. For months, precious metals poured into Cajamarca from every corner of the empire. Temples were stripped of their golden adornments, and priceless works of art were melted down into ingots. The Spanish were astonished by the wealth, but their promises were empty. After receiving the ransom, they accused Atahualpa of treason and executed him. With the emperor gone, the organized resistance of the Inca began to crumble. Though pockets of defiance continued for decades, led by figures like Manco Inca, the Spanish conquest of the empire was now all but inevitable. The arrival of the Spanish brought about a profound and catastrophic transformation of the Andean world. The old gods were replaced by Christianity, and temples were torn down to build churches. A new social order was imposed, with the Spanish at the top, and the indigenous population at the bottom, forced into labor in mines and on plantations. But even more devastating were the diseases the Europeans brought with them, such as smallpox and measles. With no immunity, the native population was decimated, falling by as much as 90% in some areas. A vibrant, complex world was brought to its knees, its people and its culture forever altered by the encounter. For nearly 300 years, Peru was a jewel in the Spanish colonial crown. The Viceroyalty of Peru, with its capital in Lima, became a center of immense wealth and power, primarily funded by the silver extracted from the mines of Potosi. Lima grew into a sophisticated city of grand churches and colonial mansions, a world away from the Andean highlands where the indigenous majority toiled. Yet, beneath the surface of colonial rule, resentment simmered. The rigid social hierarchy, which placed Spanish-born peninsulares at the top, frustrated the ambitions of American-born Creoles, people of Spanish descent. Meanwhile, the indigenous population endured centuries of oppression and exploitation. The late 18th century saw the first major sparks of rebellion. The most significant of these was the uprising led by Tupac Amaru II in 1780. A descendant of the last Inca rulers, he called for an end to the forced labor system and the abuse of indigenous communities. His rebellion spread like wildfire across the Andes, attracting a massive following of indigenous people and mestizos. Though it was ultimately and brutally crushed by the Spanish authorities, his cry for justice planted a seed. It was a powerful reminder of the deep-seated grievances that existed within the colonial system, and became an inspiration for future generations of revolutionaries. The final push for independence came in the early 19th century, inspired by the Enlightenment ideals and the success of revolutions in North America and France. The liberation of Peru was not solely a local affair. It was part of a continent-wide struggle. The great liberators, José de San Martín of Argentina and Simón Bolívar of Venezuela, saw Peru as the final crucial stronghold of Spanish power in South America. San Martín declared Peru's independence in Lima on July 28, 1821, but the fight was far from over. It was Bolívar's forces who delivered the final military blows to the royalists, securing Peru's freedom at the Battle of Ayacucho in 1824. The birth of the Republic of Peru was, however, a difficult one. The new nation was left with deep social divisions and a shattered economy. The early years of the Republic were marked by political instability as military leaders, or caudillos, vied for power and control over the country's resources. The promises of equality and justice that had fueled the independence movement were slow to materialize for the vast majority of the population, particularly for the indigenous communities. The dream of a unified and prosperous nation was born, but the path to achieving it would be long and fraught with challenges, as Peru struggled to define its identity in the shadow of its colonial and imperial past. The 20th century was a period of profound turbulence for Peru. The nation wrestled with the legacy of its past while facing a cascade of new challenges. The early decades were dominated by a small, wealthy elite, and the gap between the modernizing coastal cities and the impoverished, rural highlands grew ever wider. This deep-seated inequality fueled social and political unrest. The country's economy remained heavily dependent on the export of raw materials like guano, rubber, and minerals, leaving it vulnerable to the volatile swings of the global market. This economic fragility often led to political instability, creating a cycle of boom and bust that defined much of the century. This instability opened the door to frequent military interventions in politics. Throughout the 20th century, Peru experienced a series of military coups that overthrew democratically elected governments. These military regimes often promised order and progress, but they ruled with an iron fist, suppressing dissent and civil liberties. One of the most significant was the left-leaning military government of General Juan Velasco Alvarado, which came to power in 1968. He launched a radical program of land reform and nationalized key industries in an attempt to break the power of the old elite and empower the rural poor. While his intentions were revolutionary, the results were mixed, leading to economic disruption and eventually another change in power. The late 20th century brought Peru its darkest and most painful chapter, a brutal internal conflict. Two violent insurgent groups emerged, most notably the Shining Path, a Maoist guerrilla movement, and the Tupac Amaru revolutionary movement. For nearly 2 decades, from 1980 to 2000, the country was plunged into a state of civil war. The Shining Path's campaign of terror was particularly vicious, targeting civilians, community leaders, and government officials. The state's response was often equally brutal. The conflict left nearly 70,000 people dead, the majority of them poor, indigenous Quechua speakers in the Andean highlands, caught between two fires. Out of this period of immense suffering and economic chaos, Peru began a slow and difficult journey back toward stability and democracy. The capture of the Shining Path's leader, Abimael Guzman, in 1992, was a critical turning point. Under the controversial presidency of Alberto Fujimori, the insurgency was largely defeated, but at the cost of democratic institutions and human rights. After his regime collapsed amid a corruption scandal in 2000, Peru embarked on a new democratic era. The nation created a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to investigate the atrocities of the conflict, a vital step in acknowledging the pain of the past and attempting to build a more inclusive and peaceful future for all its citizens. Today's Peru is a nation of vibrant contrasts, a place where the ancient and the modern coexist in a dynamic and sometimes challenging dance. In recent decades, the country has experienced remarkable economic growth, driven by its rich mineral resources, a thriving agricultural sector, and a booming tourism industry. The skyline of Lima, with its sleek glass towers and world-renowned restaurants, stands as a symbol of this newfound prosperity. Peru has become a global culinary powerhouse, with chefs creatively reinterpreting traditional ingredients and techniques, sharing the nation's diverse flavors with the world. This economic success has helped lift millions out of poverty and has fostered a new sense of national confidence. This modern progress is deeply intertwined with an immense pride in its ancient heritage. All across the country, from the museums of Lima to the sacred sites of Cusco, Peruvians are embracing the legacy of the great civilizations that came before them. The image of Machu Picchu is a global icon, drawing millions of visitors who come to marvel at the genius of the Inca. But beyond the famous sites, there is a growing appreciation for the lesser-known cultures, the Moche, the Nazca, the Wari, whose stories are now being told more fully. This connection to the past is not just for tourists, it is a vital part of the nation's identity, a source of strength and inspiration. Of course, the journey is not over, and significant challenges remain. Despite economic growth, deep inequalities persist. The gap between the urban and rural, the rich and the poor, is still a major source of social and political tension. Protecting the country's incredible biodiversity, particularly in the Amazon rainforest, from illegal mining and deforestation, is an ongoing battle. And like many nations, Peru continues to grapple with political instability and corruption, which threaten to undermine the progress that has been made. The people of Peru continue to demand a government that is more just, more transparent, and more responsive to the needs of all its citizens. Yet what one feels most strongly in Peru today is a spirit of resilience. This is a nation forged from the collision of empires, shaped by towering mountains and arid deserts, and tested by centuries of conflict and change. Its story is written in the stones of its temples, in the vibrant colors of its textiles, and in the faces of its diverse people. Modern Peru is a living testament to the endurance of the human spirit. It is a country that looks to the future with hope, while drawing profound strength from the deep roots of its extraordinary past. A land where the whispers of ancient power still echo in the Andean wind.